womanizing ways of his father? Or is it just an excuse for violent behavior?
Primary school level, I would have witnessed my dad and mom fighting. He put a cutlass for her, have mom hiding and they're fighting and stuff, you know.
My name is Brian, and this is my story.
Brian's former wife was so significantly affected by their relationship, she wrote a book about her life journey, including the years she was subjected to his physical and emotional abuse. Join us this Sunday from 10 a.m. for this exclusive interview with Brian. Listen live on I-95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
This Sunday, on episode 48 of Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography.
As we begin the observation of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, we ask the question, can a man inherit the abusive, womanizing ways of his father? Or is it just an excuse for violent behavior?
Primary school level, I would have witnessed my dad and mom fighting. He put a cutlass for her, have mom hiding and they're fighting and stuff, you know.
My name is Brian, and this is my story.
Brian's former wife was so significantly affected by their relationship, she wrote a book about her life journey, including
Episode 48 of Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography.
As we begin the observation of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, we ask the question, can a man inherit the abusive, womanizing ways of his father? Or is it just an excuse for violent behavior?
Primary school level, I would have witnessed my dad and mom fighting. He put a cutlass for her, have mom hiding and they're fighting and stuff, you know.
My name is Brian, and this is my story.
Brian's former wife was so significantly affected by their relationship, she wrote a book about her life journey, including the years she was subjected to his physical and emotional abuse. Join us this Sunday from 10 a.m. for this exclusive interview with Brian. Listen live on I-95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
Answer, cause it go help me feel like a man. Listen, I want the kind of Christmas cheer that will last me throughout the year. I wanna walk Santa, help me feed me family. I want Santa, help me keep me dignity. Ginger beer and turkey, costing plenty money when I'm out there walking. I walk Santa, diamond Christmas wish, keep it on your list. Whoa Santa, whoa Santa, pressure. When you see Christmas time drawing nearer, my family looking at me with hope. I am supposed to be the provider, yes. Without a work it's so hard to cope. Good God, I want the kind of Christmas fighting for me baby Pokemon and Dolly, costing plenty money when a man ain't walking. It is humiliating. I walk Santa, like the Christmas wish, keep it on your list. Whoa Santa, whoa Santa, whoa Santa, Santa, Santa pressure. What are that whole thing that Santa is no laughing matter? I was a walk Santa. It's a work I stay for. I want to laugh. I walk Santa. I want to walk to take care of my family. Yes, I want to walk Santa. Oh God, I walk Santa. Help me keep it dignity. I want to walk Santa. Help me feed my family. I walk.
Ion Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on I-95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Ion Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Good morning. Good morning, gentle people. Good morning and welcome to Ion Dependency on this very beautiful Sunday morning. Good morning, Garth.
Good morning, Natasha. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to Ion Dependency. Morning, Storm and Tom, who is still here with us, and that opening salvo you heard was written by Carlton Collins, the man-child, sung by yours truly, and somehow the blind guy here found it. And I want to thank him for that. And that is about how many years old. But it's soca parang nonetheless, and I'm glad that you were able to hear it this morning. So today is a very special day for us in many ways, and this morning you're going to hear from someone who, and admittedly, was a womanizer, abusive to his wife, and you will hear from him on how this took place, and that's why we asked in the promo, can this be inherited? The theme this year, Natasha, for the 16 Days of Activism is...
the hashtag that they're using is no excuse, and I think this is for the 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence, which runs from the 25th of November to the 10th of December. And we are happy that Brian agreed to have this conversation with us, because we often hear from the survivors of gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, domestic violence, as we say. But this is the first time that we have been able to interview, and someone has agreed, who is a former abuser, has agreed to speak to the public about this. So I think it's very significant to hear what he has to say. And as we explore the whole concept of no excuse in this case, we really want you, the audience, to decipher for yourselves. I mean, everybody knows someone who's been in this situation, either as the victim or the abuser. So what do you think? Do you think that primarily the men who abuse women in their lives, is it learned behavior? Is it that they're bad people, that they can't change, that they're irredeemable? Or is there a set of circumstances in which they need to recognize that they've been through trauma as a child, having witnessed their parents being abusive to each other, and they act it out when they become adults? But at what point do they recognize that this is a traumatic reaction, and they can take stock, take accountability and responsibility for what they've done and make amends?
If you're a man listening this morning, if you're a partner, significant other, wife listening this morning, you may hear some things here that give you that aha moment that I am in an abusive relationship or marriage. A friend of mine called me, and when he heard the promo, he said, I'm wondering if I am abusive to my wife, not physically, but emotionally. And because he's looking back at their interactions and, living together, and he's wondering, as a former military personnel, if he inherited it, or if his military training had anything to do with it, or what. Now, playing on the hashtag no excuse, if I don't know I inherited something, then I can't use it as an excuse to do it. I inherited it, but I didn't know I inherited it. This is where we talk about predisposition. Now, there's someone who can inherit an alcohol problem from their father, grandfather, great-grandfather. It can pass on from generation to generation. And it wouldn't be an excuse because you don't know really that you only know is that you beat your wife. But how did this happen? Am I a naturally bad person, or did I inherit this trait from my father who beat his wife in front of us?
But I think it's partly a lack of consequence as well for these men. Apart from not realizing that they have been through that trauma themselves.
No, but domestic violence is against the law, so I wouldn't say there's a lack of consequence.
Frequent. Well, I don't know what the statistics are, but how many men are really brought before the courts for these offenses? Because it's stigmatized, and women who are the victims don't often want to speak out about it, and many people around them, their families, their religious institution will tell them, no, this is not. You need to stay with this person and take the abuse.
Yeah, some religious institutions are famous for asking people to stay in abusive marriages and relationships. I don't know what they're thinking. Well, you marry the person and you have to honor your vows, so he beating you is okay, but you have to honor your vows. Rubbish. And when we have Senior Soup Claire Guile in here, she will elaborate on this and I want to thank her very much for that wonderful presentation she did alongside the director of the counter-trafficking unit at the National Security Ministry on Friday. Was really powerful, and I want to thank her for that. But we'll have her in studio and she could elaborate on that. So without further ado, folks, let's go to Natasha can introduce what we're going to show, and those of you listening on radio, you can listen to this. You're going to hear from a former abuser as well in the U.S., and he came out. He just decided enough was enough, and I have to try help people now get over this. And he has fully accepted his condition, and now he's trying to help others. So you're going to hear from him for a few minutes. And the first one is just a compilation of graphics from UN Women, which is the lead agency for this commemoration of 16 Days of Activism. So it's all around the kind of messages that they are sending during this period, and basically promoting the hashtag no excuse. There are a lot of women and men, in some cases, are being abused in our country. A lot. They take it, they come to work, they smile, and they go back home to it. And you have to recognize if you're in that situation. Anytime,
or if someone close to you is in that situation, because it's not helpful either to turn a blind eye.
Yeah. And if you're not happy when you turn that corner to head to your home, then you need to do something about it. All right? Because there's no way, no how, that children, especially if you have children, can grow up in an environment like that and be positive contributors to our society. Remember, it starts in the home, the community, the country. That's the domino effect right there.
Yep.
All right? So let's go to that video A, then B, we take a break, and then we return with Brian. You're listening to Dependency. Remember, you can join us on I95.5 live on the Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel. Join us for this conversation.
There is no excuse for gender-based violence. Yet, 1 in 3 women experience violence throughout their lifetime. Violence against women and girls is the most pervasive human rights violation worldwide.
Each year, over 200 million ever married or partnered women and girls face violence from their intimate partners. There is no excuse for gender-based violence.
What is 16 Days of Activism? It is a call to action and a reminder that violence against women and girls is the most pervasive human rights violation worldwide. There is no excuse for gender-based violence.
Just this week, the LAPD reported violent crimes increased more than 14% last year. Domestic abuse cases contributed to this disturbing trend. Well, tonight, a man who once beat his wife opens up about his past and what it took to transform himself into someone who could help heal others.
He abused my mother emotionally, mentally, and physically.
I was a batterer. I was pathetic.
And I told him, I said, if you touch my mother again, I'm going to kill you.
For James Beard and his daughter Maisha, it's been a long road. Maisha's father and mother married in 1980 when Maisha was 8 years old. You say extreme batter. I have to ask you, what did you do to her?
I would choke her till she passed out, put water on her face, wake her up and choke her some more.
Beard abused drugs and alcohol, had 2 more children with Maisha's mother, and continued to batter her for the next 5 years.
She was in too much fear.
He was a monster.
What changed? What made you stop?
My father basically took her from me.
It was Valentine's Day, 1985.
I heard grandfather come in the house and he said, boy, I'm not gonna let you kill this woman.
He said, she's coming to live with us.
After Beard's parents nursed his wife back to health, she left to rebuild her life without him. He worked on getting clean.
I couldn't stand him, but you know, I loved my dad.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. All right.
Now, nearly 30 years later, Beard, who never served time for his crimes, counsels domestic abuse offenders in jail.
Gentlemen, I tell you this, and I tell you it plain.
Here inside this bungalow at the LA County Jail's Pitches Detention Center in Castaic.
If you hurt women, everything you touch gonna turn to crap.
Beard coaches domestic violence prevention skills to hundreds of incarcerated domestic abuse offenders trying to get a grip on their rage.
I'm going to teach you the physiology of your anger, on what happens to you on a physical level so you can catch it before it's too late.
He has worked with 20,000 domestic abuse offenders through the LA Sheriff's Merit Program since 1999.
Domestic violence on its deepest level is about intimacy.
Okay, so they're saying, I feel that way because I love you.
Yes.
And because I get jealous and enraged enough to do bodily harm, it's because I love you.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
So you have to unteach that.
I have to unteach that. Before we can learn what love is, we have to know what it's not.
Although Beard's ex-wife declined to be part of the story, he says they're friends, and their daughter says her mother has fully forgiven her father.
Is she proud of him? Absolutely. But she just can't relive it in this moment.
Maisha and her sister say their dad fully made amends with them and encourages them to share their family's dark story with others to further their healing process.
Whose dad beats their wife and then turns it around, is clean for over 20 years, makes amends, and then dedicates his life to rehabilitating domestic violent offenders? Whose dad does that? Mine. I'm very proud of him.
Oh man, why didn't we learn this earlier?
When you have a breakthrough, does it make you emotional?
Oh yeah, it really does, because I see me. I see 100 me's. As many men as I can get to, and to help them transform, then that's my way of saying, that's my way of coming to a point where I can say, well done. Love y'all, y'all can't do nothing about it.
Now, CBS 2 was introduced to James through Safe Passage. That's an organization that helps battered women turn their lives around. If you'd like information about that group or the program James teaches, just go to cbsla.com.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on I95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Ion Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Okay, so we're going to go to this break, folks. And when we return, we're going to be speaking with Brian. And you know someone who has this problem, whether it's your daughter, your son, niece, nephew, anyone, a friend, please ask them to listen. You can learn something this morning. We'll be back.
Morning. Listen now. Has noticed something out. Them new people and them up the road. Where's that? Girl, the man that he passing up and down in front of here with a set of woman.
I really noticed some woman living there, you know. And they can't even say as much as good morning.
Well, listen now. I wonder if it's human trafficking. You think it's that?
So, how can you spot and identify perpetrators and victims of trafficking? Many victims are found living and working together in the same place and sleep in shared and inappropriate spaces. Victims work excessively long hours. They often sleep in the daytime and work long nights. They are often escorted everywhere they go and may appear to be malnourished. They may show signs of physical abuse, drug and alcohol use, and may also appear withdrawn, fearful, or intimidated. Victims who are migrants are often not in possession of their identity or immigration documents and have irregular immigration status. Perpetrators can be male or female and may appear to be managing or controlling the victims. And they may even at times appear to be the victim's best friend, boyfriend, or employer.
We are the Counter-Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of National Security, Trinidad and Tobago, safeguarding human life.
Violence against women and girls remains one of the most prevalent human rights violations in the world. In 2017, the National Women's Health Survey indicated that 1 in 3 partnered women in Trinidad and Tobago experienced lifetime physical and sexual abuse at the hands of their intimate partner. 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence is an annual international campaign that kicks off on the 25th of November and runs until December 10th. This year, the theme for the campaign is Unite, Invest to Prevent Violence Against Women and Girls. The campaign calls on citizens to share the actions they are taking to create a world free from violence towards women. How are you making a difference? Let us know in the comments. Childline, we hear, we care.
$50 by $20, $50 by $25.
This is Kyron Pollard. When you play, do it the legal way. Don't bet on illegal gaming.
Ion Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on I95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Ion Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is Ion Dependency, and today, as we smack dab in the middle of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, we are going to interview today a former abuser who is going by the name of Brian. He is going to tell his story this morning. So if we have Brian on the line, can you hear us?
Morning. You hearing me?
Morning, yes.
Right, morning, Brian. So if you can speak up a bit so we can hear you clearly.
Yes, you hearing me?
Yes, hearing you better now.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right.
So morning to Mr. Sinclair. Morning to the listeners. Morning, Natasha.
Morning. Thanks very much for accepting our invitation to be interviewed. We don't often hear from men who are in this situation, so thank you again for agreeing to do this.
That is not a problem.
So, Brian, we would have heard the conversation at the beginning, and we are talking about could this condition be inherited? And tell us a bit about growing up home with your parents.
I can only speak for myself. So to answer if it's inherited or not, I would say on my part, on my end, yes, to an extent. So growing up where I lived, in my primary school days, I would have witnessed my dad, physically abusing my mom. So on days, witnessing this on my days going to school and stuff, you as a child, you tend to fear for your mom, knowing that your dad will be home, and you don't want your mom to be home because you know, or you may not have an idea what might be going on. So as a child growing up, it instilled this fear, in me for my mom, knowing that she could be home and I may not be able to see her when I reach home. This physical abuse, I really don't know up to this day. I don't know why it started, what was the factor involved to start this whole physical abuse in the first place. I never really got that conversation to have with my dad or mom.
But Brian, let me just take up in here. Okay, so for instance, when my father was beating my mother, I know it was always about him having outside women, and his response would be physical retaliation. So I would hear some of the conversations.
Correct.
But did you hear any conversation?
No, we never heard no conversations because we see in our dad he did not have any other woman or women at that time. I think after a while, my mom, started talking to other person, but we can't say what happened before. We can't say we don't know.
Just take up in. We just trying to sort of, we getting some messages on Facebook that they're not hearing you, and there's
some feedback. I don't know.
Somewhere.
I mean, we're not hearing it on our end.
We're not hearing it on our end. I don't know. You what the device you're using? A phone or a laptop?
I am using a laptop.
Right. You have your phone close to it with the.
No, it's not streaming on the phone.
Okay. So I don't know where that feedback. Maybe Shortman might be able to troubleshoot and sort that out for us. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we want people to hear you verbatim. So.
Correct.
All right. So, if you could raise the volume on your voice a bit on your laptop and speak a little clearer and louder, that would help too. All right. So. Yes. Yeah, we're sorting it out now. All right. Our trusted Hinkson troubleshooting here, and I think we found the answer to the problem.
Yep.
All right. So
let us know online if this is any better.
Yes, let us know online if you're hearing any better. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
All right. Right. So just to go back where we left off, we did not see him, having any other woman or woman, to cause or to be the cause of the physical abuse to our mom, right, I see messages, yeah. All right, so after all the abuse and stuff, she would have, realized that she can't be in this, and she tried to leave. And but at the time, she had nowhere to go, so she had to stay, home with us.
Oh, so she wanted to leave him.
Well, yeah, I would say that, but she didn't really come out and say, because we never had no conversations with it. And I would say because we tried to help our mom, and well, seeing people say that sound like I'm not terrible, but no radio is on because I know about the feedback and stuff. So.
Still not hearing us. I think some people. Oh God, hold on. Shut my calling in.
I think they said there's a feedback on YouTube. But we're working on it. Hang on, people. We're working on it.
Yeah, so it has to be punched out, right?
So if you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and we are speaking with Brian, and he is taking us through his growing up with his father and mother, who he saw him abusing her. And, we just trying to tie in, some men inherit it, some don't. So we're just trying to flesh it out here to see if this can be passed on to a son or a daughter. Because we have some very abusive women out there too as well, both verbally and physically, especially verbally. So let's try again and see if there's any difference.
Well, 1 minute ago, Eugene said it's still bad. I don't know. And I think everything is okay with the board.
And the radio audience said there's no feedback or interference on the radio. So
I don't know.
All right, let's keep trying. Brian, sorry to be interrupting you all the time when you start the flow, but
that's okay.
For broadcast quality, we have to make sure that, and I mean, you all did the test yesterday and everything was fine. So it has to be internal here. Right, so I keep forgetting where we... Right, go ahead, well, pick up from where you because what I wanted to find out too was your father a drinker? Was he an alcoholic?
Well, when he was young, he used to drink, but he stopped. And during that period, to my knowledge, what I would have observed, he was not a drinker. Right. He was not drinking, I would say, because he used to drink. But he would not, only on special occasions, he would take, but nothing regular, per se.
So that means naturally he was an angry person. Now you said there were times when you saw him using, or he would take up a cutlass and wave it around.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So it had one time, one evening where my mom and him got into an argument, and my mom had to run downstairs, and hide. And she had to tell me, don't tell him where I am, and we had to go upstairs and, try our best. And I was like around 8, 9 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to hear a little bit about your frame of mind as a young man growing up, going out there, getting involved with women. What was your frame of mind? What was your objective? What was your attitude towards women?
Before that, Natasha, could we just find out how did it affect your schoolwork? Because for some children, it can affect during this going to school. How did it affect you all going to school?
I will talk not only about schoolwork, I will also talk about interactions growing up also too. Um, where schoolwork was concerned, I really did not have an issue with where schoolwork was concerned. I would have been considered an average student, an average male student, um, doing schoolwork, doing homework. So I would have been considered as average. Where the interactions, it would have been different because when growing up in, where we grew up, we did not know anything about, hugging up and, when you hug someone, you give them, as you welcome somebody, you give them a hug, a kiss on the cheek, all these things. We did not grow up with that. So seeing that as a child, when you visit other homes, you ask yourself, how come you didn't have this growing up, so it affected me more of the emotional side and cultured side to know that we didn't grow up with certain things. So my thing on what love was, I did not know what love was at the end of the day. So it affected me on more of that part, socializing rather than schoolwork side.
You understand that, Natasha? So what you said that you would visit other people and see love in their family.
Correct.
But and you always often wonder, well, why am I not experiencing this at home?
Yes.
I think that's understandable. And so throughout your school life, throughout your going to school, you all witness this. How often would it happen? Daily, weekly, monthly? How often?
At that period of time, primary school, it probably would have been, like every time they got into an argument. So it wasn't something that happened daily or weekly, probably like, once a month or twice a month. It depends on, how, when the argument happens, you know, um, or the disagreement happens, that is basically when the whole ordeal starts, basically.
So, at what point in your life did your parents ever break up? Did your mother ever leave? Did your father ever face any consequences for his actions?
Well, they did not break up. They continued. They continued staying, living together. And after a while, when we started secondary school, we would have grown up, and my siblings and I would have been at an age where we could have defended our mother. So the physical abuse actually stopped. Um, my dad, no, he has not faced any of his faced any consequences of his for his actions. He actually passed away in 2008, actually. So he would have suffered a great ordeal, and before he passed away, because he ended up getting sick, actually.
So, okay, I don't want to make light of that, but some people say so he paid for his sins.
Basically, yeah.
So and who took care of him when he was sick?
My mom.
Of course.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I asked a question, I knew the answer to, but I just wanted the public to hear.
Correct.
And I've always heard people say that, don't worry, you lie down on that same bed, and you will have to take care of him when he's sick. And she dutifully took care of him.
We all took care of him. We all took care of him as his children, as his wife, and we took care of him because I had to drive him to the hospital. My sister had to drive him to the hospital, and it so happened that where she worked, where she worked, it helped him with his sickness, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you all ever try to find out, well, Daddy, why why did this happen with you and mommy? Did you ever try to find that out?
I think that was the biggest mistake we made. We never asked. And we are at a stage now we are trying to approach our mom on asking that, but we never had the chance because, he passed away so fast that we never, we were so busy taking care of him that we didn't want to, ask those questions at this time because, like we reached a stage where we were so glad to get out of that stage in life that we didn't want to interrupt or stop it or, break that happiness, and focus on the past. But again, we did not know how to resolve conflict at that time because we just grew up seeing the physical abuse. So we did not know how to have any kind of conflict resolution at that time.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency. We're going to take a break. We're speaking with Brian, and he's telling us about. We started with his growing up at home with his father and mother, and you would have heard what happened if you just joined us. He was speaking about his father becoming very ill, and the mom who he abused
for years
had to
was
end up
at his side,
taking care of him. But before we go to the break, Natasha, did any family member, like did your mom have sisters or anybody, brothers, who tried to intervene to stop the abuse?
Well, I would say it had, neighbors because my mom would have left her home, her parents' home at a young age to live with my dad. So there was I would say, you're going to live with a guy this young age, you would say like you turn your back on your family and this and that. So it had a little bit of, rift between my mom and her parents at that time. So it's going there now and then, going through that now, you will be like, you know what, I want to go back home there with them and this and that, and they will say this. I rather probably, but family wise, no, not really, no type of intervention. But strangers, yes, because strangers or neighbors would have been around when certain things happen, and they would probably get involved, So we have more intervention with that.
No, Natasha, that question for you, but we could ask, answer that. Have some time to think. Answer it after the break. Eugene wanted to find out: did your father ever say sorry for his abuse to your mother? Did he ever try to make amends before he passed away?
I think yes, he did. He did, but he was not a very emotional person to express how he felt. But when he realized that how much he would have, done to my mom, he would have reached a stage. I think they would have reached a stage that, you know what? When she started talking to somebody else, however, my mom was still living home, and he would have reached a stage that, hey, you know what? I have done this to my wife, and he have left her. He allowed her to talk to the other person, knowing that, so he didn't come out and say that, he was sorry, but he would have not gotten mad if it is she wanted to find happiness or whoever find comfort on the outside, to talk to somebody else. So he never really he said sorry, at one or two times, but never really, something ongoing or, reassuring us or saying that, he was sorry for this and, things like that. So, yeah.
All right, you're listening to Dependency. We're speaking with Brian. He's taking us through the steps of his journey. His father as an abuser, and he himself, he turned out to be the same way. Remember, if you're having problems with us on Facebook, you can join us on YouTube on Dependency. Just type in Dependency and you will see us live. That's EYEON Dependency.
When we come back from the break, we will dive into his relationship with his now ex-wife, how that started and how it progressed. And I want you, Shortman, when we come back from the break, please start with video C, where Hazel Brown talks about what we were just talking about from the start of the show, about violence as learned behavior. As we go into this conversation with Brian, and maybe we can identify some areas which his behavior was manifested or learned behavior from what he witnessed with his parents.
You're listening to Dependency. We'll be right back.
Violence and harassment against women and girls know no borders, not even the workplace. 1 in 5 persons in employment faces violence and harassment during their working life. And 3 out of 5, mostly women, endures it repeatedly. We can prevent this. We can act before it happens. It means investing in preventing violence and harassment against women and girls inside and outside the workplace. Investing in rooting out discrimination everywhere. Only by acting together can we make a difference. ILO Convention 190 grants everyone the right to a violence-free working environment. As I join the 16 days of activism for the elimination of violence against women and girls, I call upon all member states to ratify 190. Together, we can create a more inclusive world of work and ensure social justice for all. Let us unite to stop this violence before it begins.
$50 by $20, $50 by $25.
This is Kyron Pollard. When you play, do it the legal way. Don't bet on illegal gaming.
The sex trafficking is a serious thing in a way.
Sex trafficking? I thought it was only human trafficking it have.
But what do you mean?
No serious thing, boy. Where you get that from? I know about human trafficking, not about sex trafficking.
So how can you spot and identify perpetrators and children who are victims of trafficking? Many victims who are children do not look like under 18 years old. Child victims often move escorted around alone or in small groups. They also live in shared and even packed rooms and have very little clothing and belongings. Child victims are often seen with adults who are not their parents, their relatives, or their caregivers. Migrant children are often unaccompanied and separated from their parents. Child victims are often engaged in work that is not suitable for children. They are often deprived of their freedom to go to school, to play, and to enjoy being a child. Perpetrators have unexplained sources of income and possessions. They are businessmen and businesswomen running legitimate and illegitimate businesses. Perpetrators may appear to be the victim's friend, boyfriend, close relative, or employer.
We are the counter-trafficking unit of the Ministry of National Security, Trinidad and Tobago, safeguarding human life.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on 95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Violence is learned behavior. People learn to be violent. The largest amount of violence is in the home. So you're not going to make any change in the numbers if there aren't interventions that are influencing what people are learning at home. kind of violence, verbal, physical, psychological. Children suffer in Trinidad and Tobago, suffer an enormous amount of abuse. You dance, your head hard, you look like your father, you will never become anything. You're too small, you're too fat, you're too... All kinds of abuse children are suffering outside there. One of the abuses children suffer is watching their parents suffer. You may not beat the child, but you're beating the mother, and the child is seeing that that child is being traumatized, and that is abuse of that child. Yes. Because that is what they've learned, and learn that somebody who loves you can beat you. If you learn that, then you love somebody and you beat them, because that's what you've learned. We can't just deal with the results, we have to deal with what exists and what cultural norms and beliefs and behavior have to change. And as I said, where does it start? If you get back to where it starts with children experiencing violence and then becoming themselves perpetrators of violence, because that is what they've learned. Come to understand that they're not necessarily bad people, but that is what they've learned, and it's just the same way they learn to be violent, it is possible to unlearn or to change those attitudes and behavior.
Was the late Hazel Brown talking about violence as a learned behavior, and I do agree with her to some extent, but at what point, as I mentioned earlier, at what point do the men in this position take accountability for their actions and make amends? It's not good enough, as according to the UN, there's no excuse for violent behavior, but if it is something that you have learned, there comes a point where you have to acknowledge that, yes, this is learned behavior, but I am going to make a 180 and make amends for the harm that I have caused.
Brian, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
So I wanted to go back quickly to a question I asked earlier about your attitude and behavior towards women in particular as you were growing up. As a young man, you know, you're out there on the dating scene, you're hooking up with girls and stuff. What was your mindset and what was your attitude towards women in particular after having seen your mother being abused by your father?
All right. My first relationship was a pretty normal relationship. Growing up with females, in the classroom, I would have treated them like any other normal, person treating someone, caring for them. So basically, my first relationship was really normal. There was no physical abuse, to a point. I was in this relationship for years, probably around 3 years, 4 years. And we were normal. When it started to go downhill is when the relationship began, when other females approached me now and thinking, that is love. You think you're getting this from somewhere else that, hey, you could just do this and get away with it. So eventually when my the girlfriend at the time found out and, it started to go downhill, that is when I got physically abusive to her. When I say physically abusive, I think there was an instant where I didn't, never went to the intentions to hit her or anything like that. The point of she just wanting to leave, that point is when we started to fight. And she would hit back, men are like, always want to be in control of everything. It had a night. where she started hitting her, and we were on a step, and we started fighting, and she fell down the step basically. And I think that was the only time when we was fighting for that relationship, you know. So it was to the point where she wanted to leave. That is where I got, abusive. But growing up, I would how it would always start off. It would start off normal, 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 and again, it goes back to not knowing what love is.
Right, and that's a very important point that you raise about her wanting to leave, and you becoming angry about that, because the statistic is that often when women are in abusive relationships and they do try to leave, that is when they are most at risk of being seriously harmed or even killed. And I'm glad that you made the connection there and acknowledge that. But I wanted just to go back to read an excerpt from Labor of Love, which describes how you and your ex-wife met. For the benefit of the listener, this is a book that called Labor of Love that she wrote, and in it she talks about her own life, but of course she makes mention of her relationship with Brian, right? So I just wanted to share a little piece where she describes how they met and how the relationship started. So she says, at the age of 17, I encountered love, or at least what I thought it was, for the first time. I was getting ready to finish secondary school, and the charming young man graduated a few years before me. Very charismatic, he would come into the school regularly to DJ for several school events. Being a past student, they would hire him to do school concerts and events, and he would hang around as his younger sister was also a senior at the school and my peer. One day after a school function in the auditorium, he approached me and said, "Say yes." I looked at him lost, thinking he was probably speaking to the wrong person, because I know we had never had any other conversations before. In retrospect, now I often joke that it was a spiritual question I was being asked, and not him, the human being, asking me for permission to do what he was going to try to do with me. Funny, yes, but totally untrue. Who knows? Our relationship started on a very tumultuous start. Unknowing to me, she says, we started dating while he was in a relationship with a girlfriend of a few years, in a serious relationship at that.
Now, Devon, how do you think that once you got involved, before you met your wife, what was the relationship like with your girlfriends on that journey? Brad?
I would say, yeah.
Brian?
I would say, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we are.
All right. I would say the relationships, as again, started off really normal. When I had ended the relationship, that I would have moved on from one person to another one time. So when that first relationship ended, and the physical abuse started with the first person, coming on to the end of the relationship, I started a new relationship with this, my present ex-wife. And just a while after that, I started talking to another female also too. So while that first relationship ended, I started the second and third relationship basically nearly at the same time. Both relationships were normal. It was normal, didn't have no type of physical abuse at the time. And eventually when both persons, found out about each other, again, that is when the physical abuse started. So there are times when my ex-wife tried to, leave, and we would get into fights by her mom. I would have hit her in her face at the time by her mom. And, when it is that happens, the female is always try to hide it up. And, we men just want to hide it up and play like nothing happened. The other person ended up finding out too. And when she found out, they started contacting each other. And then when she tried to leave, she would have tried to, try to leave, and it would have gotten on physical with her probably on one or two occasions, basically. And we would have ended that relationship. But that third relationship would have ended. So I would have continued with my ex-wife at that point in time. It had many times she tried to leave, during that course, and we would have fought on many occasions. It had a night where she just wanted to end it all, and she tried to, take tablets basically to kill herself. And I had left her the home, to go out with the next person, and, the amount of lack of care and, we do as men sometimes, So she tried to end her life that night, and I locked her in the room basically, without a key. So
no, Brian.
Was,
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you see, what you're saying there sounds kind of familiar, right? Two things I heard. Now, when confronted, instead of you being apologetic, you got aggressive. Is that correct to say?
Yes, because remember, that is what I saw growing up, learned behavior from my dad. So I learned it from him, because, that is the only way to resolve conflict at my thinking at the time.
Oh, so you just, and she tried to leave, you blocked the door, and you said, no, you're not leaving.
Yes.
Now, what were you fearing at that time? Was your ego affected, or you were seeing that you were going to lose another partner?
Yeah, you were seeing that, you have feelings for the person, but, you don't want to lose them. So, you try all your best, you try your best physically to not let the person leave, and, not to end the relationship, because we have a fear of being exposed, as abusers or former abuser. But at that time, you doesn't want people to know, and you doesn't want to hide it. And so you have that fear of people knowing or finding out, and then you don't want the person to leave, So it's a lot of emotions that is going on at that time.
Was she employed?
At that time, I think she was doing, she was in and out of jobs. Yeah.
You locked her into a room?
Yes.
Did at any point in time, I mean, once you start that, it escalates, right? But at any point in time, did you have a chat with yourself and say, "Why doing, boy? I need to stop." Did it ever occur to you at all, or you were just gung ho and keeping her, subdued?
No, not really. It's only after, when it is, I came back home. It is always be after the fact. After it happened, then you tend to, look with it and take a check and what it is you did. And then, it's only after you realize what it is you had done. So at the time, sometimes, no, you don't be thinking about that, no.
Did you ever try to apologize, make amends, or because after you lock into the room, when would you reopen that room?
No, the same night I came back home, and then I went in, I probably came in about after 1-2 o'clock, somewhere around there. in the morning, you know.
And she in the room locked up still waiting on you to come and let her out.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And they just have me thinking now, me doing that now, I just think about how much men just probably do much more worse to women, right now as we're talking, So it is bother me a lot now at this point in my life. But we at this point right now where we talking at right now. So.
But what you said earlier about the shame of not wanting people to know, I hope you realize now that there is shame surrounding it for both
Correct.
parties, but
Yes.
everybody knows. Don't think that keeping your business indoors or abusing someone in the confines of your home, that nobody knows. Everybody knows.
Correct. Just people don't like to be exposed.
Exactly.
So-
And face the consequences of that.
Correct. Yes.
So that's more of this concern, getting exposed, rather than, worrying if you're going to lose your partner.
Right. So,
But after doing all of that, did you try to get intimate with her? And
yeah, we would have gotten intimate after that. Time would pass. Days would pass, and we would have gotten back. I'm talking about this was this was before marriage, right? This was when we just had a regular relationship. But I started making promises. I wasn't big on, a spiritual life back then. And while all this was happening, I would always realize that what would trigger the abuses when she would try to leave. In, the year 2008, when my first daughter was born. So I would have made a promise to never, have my daughter travel anyway. So I would have bought a vehicle, and my daughter would have never been traveling anyway. I would have always taken her. So I made a promise, to God that, I want to make sure I have my daughter not traveling, this and that. So while growing up, my daughter would have seen, little fights, here and there. But most of the time arguing and stuff. I would have made a promise to God in 2012 to not to hit her again, never to hit her again. And I would say that was a turning point in my life, making that promise to God. And that is what basically kind of turned my life around.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and we are speaking with Brian. And Brian is telling us about his journey as an abuser with his wife. Now, your wife did the unthinkable, which was, and Natasha, you spoke about it, so we could share that part of it.
I don't know if this is, I don't know if this is the specific incident that he's referring to, but she mentions again in the book. When I tried to leave one weekend, he took a cell phone, threw it at me, and left my ear bleeding. My stepfather took me to the hospital and then to make a report in the police station, only to have to return home the very same night. The next weekend, while the children were at my mother's. And she goes on to say, the number one tactic most abusers use to disarm their opponent is isolation. When they realize you're not alone, it takes away their power. That time, after the second episode of adultery and violence in the marriage, was the last time I felt alone or disconnected from either of my fathers. And it was also the last time my husband put his hands on me.
No, Brian, we just sharing there are two sides to our story. So we just sharing some excerpts that people will understand and confirm what you're saying here now, right?
Yes.
And most women out there do that. And men too in some cases, where as boyfriend and girlfriend, you see the person has potential to be an abusive person. And yet she still got married to you. How did that happen?
We have to ask her.
Well, yeah, but without asking, I mean, what did you say to convince her to still get married to you? What did she say there?
We were praying, we prayed together, that helped a lot to make change happen. And, I would have expressed to her that, I would have made a promise to God at the end of the day. And that helped a lot. And then, having the proposal, in a area where a lot of people are around, so you felt pressured to say yes. So, yeah. So that same year when I made that promise to God was, probably about a year after I proposed to her. But you proposed to her in an area where it have a lot of persons, and then, she asked, she would have even asked after the proposal, Devon, you know what you're doing? Brian, you know what you're doing? Javon, you know what you're doing? And, just asking questions.
Because probably
and,
probably she was scared and she just said yes so that you wouldn't get upset.
Correct.
Yeah, in front of her family and on all the people that were gathered, because it was a big gathering. It was a family gathering that happened, not so?
Yes, correct. So you feel
and
pressured.
she had an explanation for that.
Well, what she said is, oh gosh, how to find it?
Because Brian, again, this is something that happens with women. And did she think that you would have changed, when you all got married? Here's what she said.
She said, the reality is I knew what I signed up for when I even began the dating journey with this person. What did I expect to happen? In the snap of a finger, because we dressed up and had a wedding.
How was that wedding? Was she smiling and happy and pretending to be, this loved wife, and we had a very good relationship? Was it like that?
I wouldn't say it was pretending. It's just that to know that I think we would have not been together for a couple weeks before that wedding, and to know that you're trying to make this thing work. The joy of, the happiness of trying to make it work, again. I think, she probably, would have in her head that, this is it, this might be, the time to change, she probably thought that, that, this is finally it, this is what she has been praying for, and the change would have come.
That's the other thing, Brian. Before we go to a break, do you think that religious leaders have a part to play in encouraging women and men to stay in abusive relationships or toxic relationships for the sake of propriety?
Mm-hmm. To an extent, yes. Because most of the answers, they would say, well, pray about it, have faith. Yeah, facts. They would say, pray about it, have faith. And but to me, it goes back to the person relationship with God at the end of the day. I think that is the bottom line there. If you have a healthy fear for God, you would start to do some introspection on yourself, and you would start to get conviction of the things you are doing. Until you have that relationship with God, you could talk to a million persons. It would not help. You need to establish that relationship with God first. So they would, yes, to an extent, because they don't know everything, because most of the times the victims or the abuser, they don't tell the whole story. So they tell some of the story, and that is why sometimes they would get the answer, pray about it, don't worry, come for counseling, and they would not say everything.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and we go to a break, and when we return, we sort of bring it home now to find out, well, when the wife finally decided to leave and she said enough is enough, you know, and how is it going for Brian now? He who is, you know, confessing to us this morning and to you, viewers and listeners, that he abused his wife and he was an abusive person, and he's trying now to make a change and sending messages to men out there that it doesn't make sense. And, you know, if you are a religious leader listening to this broadcast this morning, I would like to know, and mothers do it too, some mothers do it too. I would like to know why. Why would you, any religious leader who want to talk about that, why would you encourage anybody, man or woman, to stay with an abusive partner? Why? I have not seen that. Tell me where in the Bible that it says that you must, your wife or your husband is beating you every day, every night, traumatizing the children, but you, when they come to you for counsel, you would tell them, go back to your husband. You took a vow. And then I would like to know what rubbish is that.
I think
What?
that
How you could rationalize that? What you could say?
they would say that a woman's supposed to submit to her husband. So regardless of what he's doing to you, you took a vow before God, and you had to take that. And as Brian said, pray about it.
Yeah.
Pray it away, right?
Well, the thing is, no, most of the times where, the persons, the churches that we would have gone, you know, they did not encourage that, and they would always say that, you know, anytime that happens, you know, they will help. But that is on my experience. But I know, you know, it have other churches that might say different, but they did not encourage the physical abuse. And I would, you know, really appreciate the persons who were in our lives, you know, who did that and gave us the counseling at the time. So.
Right.
All right, let's go to a break. We'll be right back. Stay right there.
Being a man doesn't mean you have to be dominant.
Being a man is being vulnerable.
A man is about being human.
Gender-based violence always starts with smaller things.
That little comments on social media that you see your friends making.
We need to speak up in order to support women.
What are the sorts of things that you can do in your household?
Being open to your partners, being open to your children.
It might be that you do the cooking, washing, and the ironing. Simple things that can break down those stereotypes.
Tradition is not static. Just because something has been part of a tradition doesn't make it right.
You have a choice to reform and make your own tradition.
What can I do as a young man to support you? What can I do to make sure you feel safe? If we just ask directly, that's a small step you can do.
Gendered violence is not a woman's problem. It's everyone's problem.
You need to be the change you want to see.
We can and must do better.
Ah boy. Feel like going out and buy myself a senorita tonight.
Nah. You know you might be promoting slavery.
Slavery? What you talking about?
Hey, modern day slavery or human trafficking is just what some of these people just do. You know some of these women were tricked to come here? Some are held against their will, abused, and even beaten. Most times the girls don't even see any of the money that is paid for them. And every night, they just have to come out looking nice and sexy for somebody like you. Human trafficking is a serious problem and a serious crime. Persons who solicit commercial sex services may be contributing to human trafficking. A message from the Counter-Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of National Security.
50 by 20, 50 by 25.
This is Kyron Pollard. When you play, do it the legal way. Don't bet on illegal gaming.
Ion Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays, at 10 a.m., and exclusively, on I-95.5 FM.
And streamed live, on the Ion Dependency Facebook page, and YouTube channel.
This is Iron Dependency, and we are in the middle of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, and we're having a conversation this morning with Brian, who's a former abuser. And before we continue with Brian, I just wanted to say, which we should have done at the start, if any of this conversation is triggering to you as a survivor of domestic abuse, we apologize in advance, because we know that the point of view of the perpetrator is not often discussed. So if anything that we are discussing today is triggering, we apologize in advance. Well, after the fact, but in advance if anything going forward is triggering to you.
Yes. So so you wanted to...
Yes, I wanted us now, Brian, to talk about, as Garth mentioned, when your wife became your ex-wife, when she decided enough was enough, I'm leaving this relationship. What was the outcome for you? And the second question would be, I don't know if you could deal with this one first. Had you and your wife ever sought any counseling while you were married or after you broke up?
All right. To answer the first part with counseling, we would have sought counseling through my job. We would have gotten counseling through the church. And at present, we are still getting counseling, but through my job also too. So yes, we would have sought counseling through the church, through professionals, and even through friends too. So yes, we would have gotten enough counseling. Yes.
All right. Well, that's good to hear that there's an EAP at your workplace, and that
Yes, correct.
that is a positive development that persons who are going through these tumultuous relationships can get help through their workplace. Right. But after you all, take us from your perspective, your life after your wife decided she had enough and she left for the final time.
Well, for the final time, during that time, because that leaving, it took a certain amount of years, probably I'd say 3 years. Within that 3 years, I would have, apologized to her and to our children at the time for all it is that I did to her. And with the book, she needed permission from me to write what it is she wrote there. You reached that point where, all it is you wanted to do is make her happy. And, you would have given her permission. And I gave her permission to write the book. So basically, I have nothing to hide at the end of the day. I accepted the consequences for my actions. And I have to deal with this from here on now. I caused this, so I have to, deal with it now. And I took all responsibilities for it. And whatever her happiness is, no problem. Let her go ahead and be happy.
Are you still in contact? Are you still in contact with your children?
Yes. We have our daughters going through counseling also too. So we go counseling together. When the children are counseling, we are in contact very often, and mainly for the children's sake,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many kids do you have?
We have two.
Yeah. Okay.
Did they ever try to find out why mom and dad no longer together?
The big one, she knows. The little one, she neither here or there. She goes with the with the breeze blow, and she's now learning what is actually going on. So, they I would say any question they ask, we would answer it to the best of our abilities and let them know. We wouldn't hide the truth from them.
All right. And how old are they, if you don't mind me asking?
They are 15 and 9.
And they live with your ex-wife?
Yes.
Okay.
So, in closing now, how are you dealing with yourself, and
what have you learned?
What have you learned from this?
I have learned when I was an abuser that we don't like to be exposed. So women, expose them. Don't afraid to call police. Always put measures in place, put persons in your trust around you. When I say when it is you're going to do certain things, you're going to expose them, put stuff in place so that if it is, they try to harm you, that you'll have persons there. Expose them. That is something we don't like as an abuser. We do like to be exposed. I lost my train of thought there.
Yeah,
because what else have you learned about?
Yeah, what else have you learned? Because you lost a good wife.
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Right. Tell us about that.
So, in this part now, what I have learned is to always listen. Always try to listen, and we as men, we don't really listen that much, but we need to listen to exactly what it is they are saying. What I have learned also is to always have a relationship with God. Regardless of what church, to study religion, have a relationship with God. At the end of the day, first and foremost, have that fear for God. Pray for your family. Always try to lead as a man. Don't try to downplay when you make a mistake. Own up to your mistakes. Seek help, and need professional help also. And when you're praying to God, you will be led in the correct direction to go where you need to get help. That is always when God can send, God can answer, you will send somebody. So always remember that too. So I have learned so much that sometimes we are selfish and we don't even know it. Sometimes, we as men, especially growing up in the home that I grew up in, there's so much of mistakes that we would have made growing up that we now trying to correct when we are older. So I have learned so much, and now trying to correct all those issues and problems that you can end up losing everything. Yeah, which basically I kind of did.
We're gonna take some calls for you, Rand. Before we do that, I want to show you all a picture of someone who's in prison right now. He's a former member of the Coast Guard. And we're speaking men this morning, and I would like to speak on this too as well, because a lot of men out here who have the opportunity to serve, and I'm talking to all servicemen this morning in Trinidad and Tobago. All of you. It seems as though some of you are so predisposed that you can't help yourselves and you continue to throw away your careers. You all know how our Dependency started because of me throwing away mine. But I want to bring something home this morning. You all would have heard that story of the SNU, the Special Naval Unit officers or personnel who would have committed a dastardly act after dropping the Chief of Defense Staff to work. I'm going to show you a picture of one this morning. He's in prison right now. And I want to bring something, I want to give you all some food for thought here this morning. Because every time I look at this picture, my body, my stomach turns.
Image D, Shortman.
Image D, Shortman.
Please.
Put up Image D, please. And I want to read the text under his picture. And I want you to look at his face. And I want you to put your face as a serviceman in this frame here right now, in this picture here right now. Because we're speaking to our men this morning. And this one concerns you too. You see, some of you don't understand about the oath that you took. And you continue to spiral. I've met former servicemen who would come up to me and say, that session we had at National Security that Mr. Hines had initiated some years ago, I used your testimony to go through my career. And thankfully, I'm retired now and I'm doing well. And I thank you for your intervention. Some people listened. Some servicemen listened. I've met police officers. I've met, when I had a chance to speak to police officers, now I have a degree to do that. So the academy man say. But I speak to prison officers, Coast Guard officers, Coast Guard personnel, Defense Force personnel, to cover the entire formation. And I want you all to listen to this. And I want to give you some food for thought this morning. Homicide detectives say 3 members of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard Special Naval Unit remain in police custody in relation to kidnapping and murder investigation involving a 34-year-old Maraval resident, Teddy Richard Sylvester. Well, they're on remand now. Sources close to the investigation said it was ongoing and the men are expected to be questioned extensively over the next few days about the death of Sylvester, whose body was found dumped along Cadet Road in Petite Valley on January 13, 4 days after he was kidnapped. According to senior police sources, the men could face charges of murder, kidnapping, and aggravated assault. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service confirmed in a brief media release yesterday that the men were assisting in a homicide case that occurred earlier this month. Now here's the rub. The trio, who are members of the Special Naval Unit, now this is a unit just like Special Forces in the regiment, where a lot of people try to aspire to be part of. It's not it's not a wash your foot and jump in thing. You have to work to be in these units. So members of these units are trusted, even polygraphed to an extent. And when you're driving the Chief of Defense Staff, you're supposed to be a very trusted person because you have to have his back, right? The trio, who are all members of the Special Naval Unit and part of the security detail of the Chief of Defense Staff, Darrell Daniel, were apprehended on Wednesday morning following a joint Army and police operation outside the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force headquarters in Chaguaramas, shortly after they dropped off the Chief of Defense Staff at his office. Now, picture the mindset of the Chief going to work that morning, knowing that these men going into a sting operation from the time he landed at the Defense Force headquarters. Why? Because the police would have briefed him, and of course he had to remain confidential and drive them straight into this thing, right? Now think about how he felt. Think about that. It's a double whammy here, right? Now, the men, all in their 30s, are from Carnage, Barataria, and St. Anne's, are employed with the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, one as a writer and the other as two as sailors. Following their arrest, police conducted extensive searches of their vehicle at Camp Ogden, as well as their lockers at the Chaguaramas base. Sources say warrants were also executed at their respective homes over the 4 days. Sylvester was kidnapped on January 8th outside the Cameron Hill home in Maraval by 4 men dressed in tactical uniform with markings police on their chests and thrown into a black Nissan X-Trail vehicle before they drove off. Sylvester's body was found 4 days later. Now, I want you all to understand something. Those of you who insist on going on the road of misbehavior in public office, you're going to regret it.
Come back to our short man. I want them to see God's face while he's saying these things.
Why you want them to see my face?
Because
no, I want you all to understand something. You all are going to regret it. You see, look at his face. Look at this young man's face. Right? And understand that he is not going to see Civil Street for the rest of his life unless going to court. That's it. Your career is done. If you have wife and children, now they're in the arms of somebody else. Because it's January this happened. The wife and children, if they have that, maybe still grieving your loss, hoping that against hope that one day you'll be released. Let me tell you something. You're not going to be released, especially if you kill somebody. To whom much is given, much is expected. You're a member of the service. And there are hundreds of people in this country. If you call a recruiting now, at all arms of the protective service will line up around the building 3 times to get in. Some of them they want to work. But then there are those who really want to serve their country. How do we differentiate the two? Now you, young man, short man, put back up the picture. Forget my face. Don't worry, Natasha. Put back up the picture. I want them to see it. I want them to look at his face because some of his batch might be listening this morning. And any of you.
You sure that's not the person who died, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Any of you out there who think as a service personnel.
I like the picture of Jesus behind him.
That, and so ironically, picture of Jesus behind him over his shoulder.
Of white Jesus, let me add.
But look at his face. Mother's milk still on his face, right? And that's it. Life is over. You're done with. Come on, you all think. You all hear me say many times, I would give anything besides my arms and legs to wear my uniform again. Anything. It hurts to this day. You all have a career. You took an oath to protect us and defend your country. And you cannot take that oath and go kill somebody or plant marijuana on somebody and have them in prison or put down robbery while you're in uniform and all these things. You're desecrating it. You are going to regret it. I may not be able to stop you all from going down that road, but I could show you all the future. Oh God, I could do that. Because you see the journey coming out of prison, if you come out, it is going to be hard. Look at his face. I want you all to look at his face and put your face in this mugshot. With the picture of Jesus behind him. Well, Jesus had to be watching the back in prison now. But this young man will never see the light of day again. Once police arrest, you know why it's a guy arrested on the base? In front of your colleagues? You know what it is? So for the right price too, they could have killed the chief of defense staff.
Yep.
They could have set up the chief of defense staff in an ambush and get him for the right price. If somebody wanted to take him out and offer them a couple of million, they would have set up the man and kill him. Well, come on, fellas. Come on. Think. For God's sake. You're wearing a kit. You're wearing a uniform. Anywhere you go in the world, USA, England, Canada, where they recognize service personnel, the first thing they will tell you when they realize they are service personnel is what? Thank you for your service. Because they understand it. Why we in Trinidad and Tobago can't understand that yet? That serving your country is a noble thing. And I had to go through the ringer to understand that to this day. I'm like a professional beggar all over the place because of disrespecting my oath. Yeah, the defense force could have done better by us. But water under the bridge now. I survived it. But I'm here to tell you all, this picture here that we're looking at, whatever they left outside, car, house, wife, whatever, they're not going to see any of it again. And they're going to spend their first Christmas in prison this year. Because January this year this happened. So this Mr. Man here and his partner, who disrespected the chief of defense staff, go in and spend Christmas in prison. You just get a hot cross buns. Let me prepare you for it. Well, I don't know if it changed now. But you will get a nice little bun with some icing on the top. And you may get a piece of meat for lunch.
A thinly sliced piece of ham between a dry hops with some butter.
Copybook page. And they get in JFC if they have.
What is JFC?
Jail fried chicken. So if you only want jail fried chicken, go ahead and do all your foolishness.
Oh, God.
Go ahead. Keep disrespecting all your oath. I'm not understanding that every time you put on that kit, you put it on for Trinidad and Tobago, not for you.
But you don't think it's good that they were caught this quickly and apprehended and taken out of the service so that at least the service itself is not tainted in any way, you think?
It was what?
It's not tainted in any
It's
way.
a good thing?
They were apprehended quickly and brought to justice.
Yeah, because what I told them, I remember telling every serviceman, when you take an oath, it's not to swear to the chief of defense staff or your commanding officer or to the commissioner of police or to the commissioner of prisons, you know. You ain't taking an oath. They don't tell you to swear to them, you know. They tell you to swear to a higher power because the chief of defense staff cannot keep his eyes on you all the time.
but a higher power can. And if you can take an oath and disrespect the higher power that you took the oath to, well then, sad be your portion according to the old people. So let's go ahead. Go right ahead. Because this young man we're looking at here, no pension, no gratuity, because that's what happens when you get an dishonorable discharge. And then anything that you work for, gone. And you leave your family out here now to fend for themselves. All you think, fellas, oh God, please, I'm begging all you, think. Because you're going to regret it. I'm telling all you're going to regret it. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart, really. God, Father, forgive me this morning, but I had to say this. It breaks my heart to know that you all getting a chance to serve your country. And just, this young man just hand the state over his life. That's it. You just wake up one morning and say, at 24 years old, I go in prison and spend the rest of my life.
And for what? What did he get out of it? Really?
What did you get out of it? And back in the day, the military taught us that kind of discipline. You don't take the chief of defense staff escort vehicle and go and kill somebody and come back to work normal. God hit all you at one time. Only get hit one time. Think about it. Let's take some calls. Brian is still there. I'm sorry to get in on your time and rant and carry on here, but I had to say this because I'm tired of seeing men throw away their career.
Yes, I'm here still.
622-3937. We could take some calls if you have anything to say to Brian. So, Brian, in closing, what would you say to men out there?
Don't think that you can't change. You need to seek the right help. You need to stay close to God, most important. And seek the help that you need. And always remember, for every decision that you're about to make, always consider and think about the consequences of that decision.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, I hope that somebody out there is listening, a man is listening who may be or knows of someone who is going through this and can intervene to talk him down. I mean, if you were knowledgeable about this happening in someone else's relationship, Brian, what would you do?
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear you good.
If you were aware of this happening in a marriage or relationship, what would you do? How would you intervene?
Hold that thought. We take a call. 622-3937. Think about it, Brian. What would you do if you know somebody? Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good program, man.
Thank you.
I just thinking about, it's a people who just study this thing and do degree and do masters in these type of scenarios. I just feel that the problem with the community, especially African youth and so on, is way deeper than we think, I think we have to go a few levels down, a few levels further down to really get to the root of this problem. It can't just be that these fellows just wake up one morning and decide to do these things. It's hard to be part of the culture, the upbringing. Maybe it could be single parent homes, I don't know, but sometimes we tend to just scrape the surface with somebody's issues and we need to delve deeper. I mean, is it there's a lack of religious guidance in the community? Do we need to go back to that kind of religious background? Do we need to have more fathers in these homes? Are we lacking male mentorship? Is it part of the school system? I just thinking we need to, it's can't just, and you see what happens? The problem is so prevalent that we can't just look at just one incident or one or two incidents and dismiss it as an individual problem. It's a community problem. It is,
yes.
Especially, and you got to be plain, it's within the African community.
Yep.
Right? Our brothers, these are, too many of our brothers are falling prey to this kind of situation. So I'm just thinking, I think the conversation has to get a little deeper. Maybe you need to get more professionals who would have studied these things, criminologists, etc., to really get to the root of this problem. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. 622-3937 is the number to call. Good morning.
Good morning, Natasha. Morning, guys.
Morning.
Morning, Mr. Hingston, and to all the listeners. The young man being interviewed, I'm so happy to know that in this modern era that the whole family can go for counseling, even though he and his wife, they are separated. That's an honor and a privilege.
Yes.
Because in my day, we just as children had to suffer the consequences of, domestic abuse in the family and no help. Even you're going to church and there was no help. Nobody took you on, So I am happy for this today, and I wish this young man and his wife and children all the best. Thank you all for this program.
Thank you so much. I agree. That is an awesome development. Good morning.
Good day to you, Gata and Natasha.
Morning.
The caller 2 calls out before
Mm-hmm.
seemed to be hitting the nail on the head, but he seemed not to have an answer in terms of what is the problem, and he identified the African youth and how you solve it. First of all, let me say this, everybody in the country lawless. The people who come into town and park their car, they not only know African youth or know nothing. They park their car in the corner where they're not supposed to park it. Several times, I've made mention to people like Pitt and the other one who's beyond Synergy. What is happening to basic law and order and the enforcement of basic law and order in the country? Everybody in this country appear to want to be the 42nd member of parliament. All they want to focus on is some big ideas and come across as though, you know what, they're brighter or they want to be the brightest one in the room. There are some basic things that we're not doing in the country, which is enforcement of basic law and order. You have mechanics parking cars, 10 cars on a particular street, doing what they want. And another problem is the African has not been informed properly about his true history, about the king and queens that they are. The education system has failed us. These children, they know that something is wrong, and they just can't put their hand on it. It is time for the truth to be told, and nobody is attempting to really do that. And let me just finish up by saying this. If you look at how the 7 richest countries recognized in the world got to be the 7 richest countries, they're the biggest thieves. Europe, Great Britain, all of them.
Yep.
Where did Elizabeth get the deed from that she owns so much of property? That them 2 grandsons that she have is arguing with each other about what part of Africa they own, and one of them arguing about, I own the part with more of the animals and the giraffes and stuff like that. Where they get the deed from? So then you have a set of people in the bamboo, right? Who now? Where they deed? And everything is just happening, and he in Shan have a lawyer that tell him nobody can do him nothing.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's stay focused. I know you have an active song like you have an active grind. You get a soapbox for a little while.
But we understand. A few good points in between. Yes.
Yeah, but we understand because you talk about the lawlessness we're seeing on the road.
Yes.
And I want to say to you adults out there, Jesus Christ, so sorry for blaspheming this morning. Like breaking traffic lights now, you're getting a prize to do that. You all, I see Maxi. Men, women too.
Yes.
Seeing a red light, they are pushing a red light and would mash the gas, kick down, and still go through a red light. That's what's happening in our country. Never see a politician do that though. But Oli always have something to say about them. Oli, carry on. Good morning.
Hello?
Morning.
Morning.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about the lawlessness, about the shallishness, but you kind of cut short on it.
No, we're not discussing that this morning in Shan and them this morning.
So we would appreciate if you would
you all stick
stay
to
on
the
the
topic. Yes, please. I appreciate that very much. Hello, good morning.
Good morning to the St. Clair's.
Morning, sir.
Good morning to Mr. Hinkson. Mr. Hinkson, boy.
And Brian is still with us.
Brian, okay. Brian, boy, I admire the fact that you could come, that you have explained your situation, and by the grace of God, you will get healing. Now, your story is a lesson for both young males and females who get caught up in this scenario. So may God bless you in your recovery. Now, I want to say something. It's unfortunate that this young soldier has found himself in this predicament.
Sailor,
okay. But it is synonymous of the pitfalls that all young people in Trinidad are facing, not only African youth. It's a national situation where certain youths don't understand what life is all about.
Yep.
So killing somebody or robbing somebody, it ain't a big thing. So I hope that young people, boy, understand that, listen, live a good life out on the road and don't follow the temptation, because you might end up just like how the sailor and many others have and will end up. So, God, good program once more. Safe journey home.
Thank you, my friend. Short man, put on the picture again. I want people to see it. I want people to see it, and I want servicemen to look at it, and I want you to think about spending Christmas in prison for the first time away from your family. Yes, yeah. Think about it. And eating JFC. Think about it. Think about it.
Hello,
good morning.
Good morning. My question is for the guest.
Yes, please go
ahead. Brian, as a person who was an abuser, and you said that you are healing, my question now is, what is your relationship with the victim like now, and what your expectations are of her and your children? So, as you have healed and grown, even though, because I think you, Mr. St. Clair mentioned that you lost a good wife. So my question is, what is your expectation of your relationship post being an abuser as you have now healed? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question, Brian.
Yes, no, you could answer that quickly?
Yes. We are going through the process of co-parenting. We are trying to do as best as we could to co-parent for the children at the end of the day, so that this would not affect them in the long run. So we try to keep it as much as just for the children alone. So once you could communicate with the children, and we have been receiving counseling on how to co-parent, that is the main thing. Our main goal right now is our focus on the girls, and then we live our separate lives. And that's it basically. So
do you still have, you spoke about co-parenting, but do you have any other responsibilities to her in terms of financially or otherwise?
Well, we just as it is right now, I am paying maintenance for the girls, and besides that, when it is we go out, I will try to pay for everything that they need, and whatever it is, if they need stuff home, I will still purchase it out of that. So I try my best to help out where I could help out, because she's not really working now. So I try my best to still do what it is I have to do, although the little arguments and this and that. So, you try to separate that. So I still do stuff out of the regular maintenance.
All right. Let's go back to the lines. 622-3937. Hello, good morning. We are on the last leg of our program. We're speaking with Brian, who just gave his testimony as a former abuser and how he's trying to turn his life around and take care of his journey now. Hello, good morning.
Good morning to God and Natasha. My question for Brian is, what are the effects of the counseling thus far?
All right.
What? Sorry?
What are the effects of the counseling? How is the
counseling? Yes.
Improved his life?
The counselor has helped tremendously.
Are you in a relationship now?
No, I am not in a relationship. I'm presently single, because I think I need to take that time for myself to learn myself a little more.
Okay.
The counseling has helped tremendously. I would always recommend persons to get professional counseling, but the ultimate counselor right now for me is God.
Okay, sir. Hello, good morning.
I don't know. Hello?
Yes.
Well, I don't know if that adequately answers the question, because I am hoping to get something tangible to say, well, this has happened or that has happened as a result of counseling.
Well, counseling in what sense? Go ahead, Brian.
Well, he has mentioned that he has been counseled in, I think, three particular areas: the church, the job professionals, as well as friends. So what has happened to him, to you, Brian, as a result of these interventions? This is my real question. What has happened to you? I mean, you started out by saying that the counseling is very good. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what good has happened to you?
All right. So being getting angry.
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
All Right. So getting it would have dealt with my temper. It would have dealt with emotions and how emotions built up. It would have dealt with a very holistic kind of um thing on me. That I would have gotten that from the counseling, and I would have been able to see different perspectives on how to deal with situations. Always the different parts of storming, Norman, and all these different things. They would have taught you a whole different, perspective on life to just see things different. But it would have taught you a lot. I can't remember everything, but it would have helped me do a lot of changes in my life. And I mean, I can't get into everything because we don't have much time, but it would have helped me.
Okay. Hello, good morning. To the servicemen just joining us, quickly I want you to log on to Facebook or YouTube and see your comrade with Jesus standing behind him right now. And knowing that he's not going to leave prison again, and he's spending first Christmas this year in prison. First Christmas in prison. Hello, good morning.
Hi, morning.
I know Christmas in the force is always be a special time, and you're missing all of that, friend. If you're listening in prison right now through prison radio, you're missing all of that. You and your comrades who are in prison right now, you're going to miss Christmas. If you just had a child, you're going to miss the first Christmas with your baby. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
First time caller, but I've been a young person listening to I-95 for a very long time.
Welcome.
However, this morning I was inspired to ask Brian, what did he think caused him to lash out at his wife or his partner in that way? And even though people say that is a learned behavior, it's something that you see, he would have saw his mother go through all of that trauma. And you saw how that hurt her. You saw what she went through. How could you then go forward and inflict that same trauma on somebody that you said that you loved? Wouldn't you want to protect them from that? I want to know, what was going on in his mind when he was doing that action? Did you not remember what your mother experienced?
Good question.
I'd like to get his perspective on that. Thank you.
All right. We'll have to end with that. So, Brian, go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. So at the time, and I think it would be because we saw it, because we didn't pay no mind to it, we know what was going on, and it goes back to because we never asked questions about what caused it. So we just lived life normal after. All right. So because we didn't ask the questions, what caused it? Daddy, why did you do this? Mommy, why this happened? This and that. We didn't ask no questions. We just leave it, let it be. And then we continued our lives. When it actually happened, guess what we did?
Something happened there. We lost the connection. Shortman, take down the picture now.
Are you ready for people to see your face
No.
now?
I want people to see that I want servicemen this morning be talking about men.
Lord.
And this picture we had up here is of a serviceman who is in prison right now for murder or was arrested and charged for that. And all you servicemen out there, again, you're going to regret it. I'm begging you all. Brian, I want to thank you very much for spending the time with us this morning.
Yes,
Natasha, I know I held back Natasha because this kind of conversation triggers Natasha.
Yes,
and
it does.
I find she was real cool this morning. I thank her for that because she's not easy when discussing these situations. She don't have no empathy for men at all.
No, I wanted to take it easy on Brian because I know the decision to have this conversation must have been a difficult one to begin with. So I didn't want to, I didn't want to press too much, but we still do appreciate the information that he shared and the fact that as little as some people thought it was, some people felt he didn't go deep enough, and I kind of agree, but thank you for making that initial effort, Brian.
Yes, Brian, thank you so much, right? And we'll keep in touch. And to all you servicemen in Trinidad and Tobago, I want to wish you all a happy
God
day.
see all the name of the papers or face of the papers.
No, this hurting real bad because you had a chance to serve your country and you were serving the chief of defense staff at the time, and you went and do what you all did. That's unforgiving. And I'm begging you all, those of you who are going down that road right now, make a turnaround, please, because you're going to miss the camaraderie, you're going to miss the service, you're going to miss wearing that uniform, you're going to miss it. you're going to miss it. And if you're damaged like me, it will take you years.
Well,
to
if
get
they
over
weren't
it.
truly true members, would they really miss it?
Well, that's a good point. But you know what? You have lost a lot because now your life has come to an end. You're not leaving prison again for the rest of your life. And magistrates and judges love servicemen to come in front of them. Because to whom much is given, much is expected.
Hashtag no excuse.
Mr. Daily Knock has the 12 o'clock news ready for you. He's here. Thank you all very, very much for being with us this morning on another interesting program. Natasha, thank you for your calm this morning.
Thank you. Hashtag no excuse. Good afternoon.